Guys, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about my surrogacy journey and kind of the timeline of things. And I know I look like a bum right now. I've been taking care of a baby all day and I'm in my car in a parking lot, so the lighting is super weird. No, that's weirder. Okay. So don't judge me, please. So basically I applied. First I want to say that I did a lot of research. I've wanted to do this for a really long time, years, and it's something I talked with my boyfriend about, and he was on board with it, and that's pretty important if you're in a committed relationship. They definitely have to be on board with it. You're going to need a strong support system, and you need to be 100% done with your family because IVF can affect your fertility. Anything can happen. You could lose your fallopian tubes, your uterus, you just don't know. And so after researching a lot, I researched different agencies and found the one that I thought aligned with what I was looking for the most. And also I want to say, if you're in this for the money is definitely going to help my family out in the future as far as like saving for my son's college or whatever he wants to do in the future. But if you're just in this for the money, it's not gonna be for you. You won't like it because you have to be super emotionally invested in this. It's a big deal. So anyway, so I applied online to the agency May 28th of 2018. I got an email back straight away the next day, May 29th, to schedule a phone call for a phone interview. And I have the timeline written down here, so that's why I keep looking down. But we had our phone interview with the recruiter June 3rd, and it was basically like, why do you want to do this? Are you done with your family? How do you feel about abortion or selective reduction, which is pretty much the same? How do you feel about carrying twins and things like that? And you want to be completely honest, because this is part of how they get to know you and match you with a couple, and also if they can feel out if this is right for you. So after that, I had my background check was completed. That was completed June 5th. And they do or at least this agency, but I think most agencies also do a background check on your partner. If you're living with, it may just be if you're living with them, but also any other adults that are in the house. So, my boyfriend, actually, when he was really young, he was going through some rough times and was homeless, and he stole like some bologna and bread and cheese and a toothbrush, and he was charged for it. He didn't spend any time in jail or anything, but anyway, it came up on the background check, so they asked about it, and we explained it, and they were like, okay, great, just get him to write us a letter explaining what happened, and everything should be all right. So he did, and everything was all right. And then June 23rd, I got all my OB records from my pregnancy turned in, and that did take a little while trying to get all that together. And also my insurance booklet, that took a while for some reason for me to get to, but got that sent in. They called me with a potential match August 1st, so they just found somebody who they thought we would get along with, and they told us a little bit about them, and they seemed like a really great couple. And then our my agency does an in-home visit, and I totally agree with this. I didn't mind it at all. But that was August 16th. So basically, she came in, somebody from the agency came in, and she took pictures of the rooms in the house, but just from the doorway, like, she didn't even go into the room. She didn't look in the closets or walk around with a white glove or anything. Most of the time we sat at my kitchen table and just went over the same exact questions that I answered on the phone interview, just to make sure that I wasn't hiding anything. And they just want to see your house to kind of, so you can meet them face to face. They can meet you face to face, and they know that you are who you said you are, and you're not living in, you know, like a death trap or whatever. I mean, my house is by no means the nicest. It's not the cleanest. I have a 1.5-year-old little boy, so there's toys everywhere. That's to be expected. So it's really not a big deal at all. And then we had a meeting with our IPs, but they live in London, so obviously we couldn't meet them face to face, but we talked with them on Skype, and that was September 4th. And I mean, we love them. They're just awesome. And so we were matched September 7th, but it's not considered a real match until the contracts are complete, but pretty much we were matched. And then we had our psych screening, my boyfriend and I. That was September 20th. So basically she just asks you, you know, it's just to figure out if you can handle it, you know, being pregnant with a baby and then giving it back to the parents. And that's all it is giving the baby back to the parents. It's never yours to begin with. And just how you feel about selective reduction and that sort of thing. And I was super nervous, but it's not a big deal at all. It took maybe like 10 minutes. And then September 24th, I flew to their fertility clinic, and that's all paid for. You don't have to worry about any of that, although you will, or I did, have to pay for like my Lyft rides while I was there, my food and other stuff like that, parking, and then you have to submit for reimbursement. So you do have to pay some of it up front, but not like airline tickets or hotel costs or anything like that. That's another reason you want to be kind of financially stable before, and they do make sure that you're financially stable, so you know that won't be a big deal. And I'm not rich, but you know we can afford a couple Lyft rides. And so October 24th, I had my the joint psych session. And that is with me, my boyfriend, and the intended parents, and it's just, again, the same questions to make sure we're all on the same page, and we were. And then that's also around the time that I heard back from, I got my medical clearance from the fertility clinic. And at the medical screening, all they did a lot of blood work, and then they did a saline ultrasound, and they did basically what the transfer would be, but without the embryo, just so I could see what it was like. And none of that was a big deal. It was not painful, any of it at all. It was kind of like a pap smear. But they did think that they saw some polyps. So I had to get a hysteroscopy November 12th. Again, that wasn't a big deal. It was a little uncomfortable, but not painful or anything. And I found out there were no polyps, so that was great. And if there were, they would have just removed them, and then we would have continued on with the process. Either way, it wasn't a huge deal. And December 14th is when the contracts began, and that's super exciting. I got my first draft, and the lawyer is paid for also. My agency recommended some lawyers in my state, but if you know somebody, you can absolutely get whoever you want. And got the first draft January 2nd. We went back and forth a couple times. Nothing big, just over little stuff like timelines and you know, you just want to make sure that you really are reading the contract over and over and over. And we got the final contract February 5th, so we got that signed and completed and turned in. And so we were officially matched. And then March 1st, I began my Lupron at 10 units. And at this point, before the medical screening even, is when I started the birth control pill. But when I started the Lupron, it was at 10 units. And it goes right in your little belly fat, and it's not painful at all. I was pretty scared to give it to myself. But I was able to, and it does not hurt. March 7th, I stopped the birth control pill. And then March 13th, I had my first appointment, and that was at my OBGYN. They did blood work, and then they did a vaginal ultrasound to check the thickness of my uterine lining. It's the baseline appointment to get a feeling for where you're at. And then March 21st, I had my first check. So they did blood work, and then they checked the lining, again, a vaginal ultrasound, and it's so it's supposed to be thickening up at this point. I started, and after that first one, I started estradiol, and and I started baby aspirin that day as well. So then on the 21st, when I had that first check, I took my estradiol 3 times a day now. And then March 28th, a week later, another check, and I stopped Lupron after that day's dose. And then March 30th, and at that point, I think my uterine lining, it was like an 8.2, so that's not super thick, but thick enough. I think my clinic wants to see it at least a 7. And so March 30th, I was cleared to start the vaginal progesterone. So that's just like a little suppository. It goes right in your vagina. Not a big deal. It like dissolves and leaks out, and that's kind of gross. But for me, I haven't had any side effects or anything, so it's been fine. And I think it's pronounced Medrol, which only lasted once for 4 days. And then March 31st, the next day, is when I started the progesterone injection. And that goes not like your butt cheek, but more so your hip. And that's the one that people, it can be pretty uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, sometimes it does hurt. But what I do is I get really, really hot water, and I get my progesterone in the syringe, and then I put it in the cup of the really hot water for about 5 minutes, and that helps thins it out because it's in oil, so it's really, really thick if you don't warm it up, and that kind of helps spread it out, and you massage it really, really good for like 10 minutes, and then put a warm compress on it for a while. And it's for me, it's been fine. I've been very lucky. I haven't had any lumps or any bad bruises or anything, but and you have to take that until you're like 10 weeks pregnant. So then a few days later, that was March 31st when I started that, so like 5 days later, April 4th, I had my transfer. So the 3rd, I flew back to their clinic, and I had my transfer, and we Skyped with the parents during, and it was really great. It was not painful. You sit there and relax for about 30 minutes afterwards, and then went back to my hotel and just laid around the rest of the day, because it's not strict bed rest. You walk around the hotel. In fact, I think they encourage walking around a little bit, like within your home, within your hotel. And then the next day, I just went to normal activity. No like rigorous exercise or anything, but we went out. It was in DC, so we walked around the monuments and everything, and then we flew back. Well, we were gonna fly back that Friday, but we decided to pay for an extra night to stay there, and just flew back that Saturday. And so that Monday, at just 2.75 days post transfer, and it was a 5-day frozen embryo, I got a really, really, really faint positive test, and that is not really super common, so don't expect to get one that early, and don't be discouraged if you don't get one that early. I don't know why I did, but I did. And then I continued taking at-home pregnancy tests throughout the week, even though they kind of discourage it. But the line kept progressing and getting darker, so that was super, super exciting. And then at 11 days post 5-day transfer, which was this past Monday, so what's today? Tuesday? Yesterday, I went in and I had blood work done to check my HCG level, and my nurse, or the nurse at the clinic, told me they want to see it at about 100 at this point, and mine was 250, so that's good. And I go back tomorrow, so they want to see it double in 48 hours, so I go back tomorrow and hopefully it's doubled. So right now I'm still on the estradiol 3 times a day, baby aspirin, and the progesterone, the vaginal suppositories, and the injections. I don't know if I just said that twice. And prenatals, of course. So I will, if there's any questions, just comment. I'm sure I'll find other videos to make. This is where I'm going to keep like a diary of this journey. So yeah, I think that's about all for now. So if you watched for this long, thanks so much, and I wish you all the best of luck in your own journeys. Thanks. Bye.